The champagne fountain at the Valtor estate rose 3 meters high, its crystalline structure embedded with micro-LEDs that shifted color based on the vintage being served. Maya-chan watched the amber liquid cascade down through holographic projections of the family crest, each droplet tagged with a nano-signature that linked to the drinker's personal brand profile. By morning, every guest's social feed would auto-populate with curated images of them holding precisely the right glass at precisely the right angle, their influence scores ticking upward with each algorithmic share. She stood near the balcony doors, her neural implant buzzing softly with connection requests she ignored. The dress she wore had cost more than her monthly salary at the Brightside Learning Hub, silk threaded with adaptive fibers that adjusted to her body temperature while projecting a subtle shimmer across her skin. David had insisted. Patricia had approved. Maya felt like she was wearing someone else's skin, still hiding from the cameras. David materialized beside her, his own implant glowing faintly at his temple, the premium model that projected his vital signs as proof of his superior genetics. His hand found the small of her back, the touch practiced rather than passionate. Mother's about to make the announcement. We should be front and center. Maya studied her husband's profile. He'd had his jawline sharpened last month, the bone restructuring done at the same clinic where Cameron got his monthly testosterone optimization. The Ashford men were supposed to look like they'd stepped out of a corporate dynasty Hollywood, all sharp edges and calculated symmetry. I was just taking a moment, she said, keeping her voice light. It's overwhelming sometimes. All these people, that's because you still think of yourself as a guest. David's smile didn't reach his eyes, the expensive ones he'd had replaced with enhanced irises that shifted from blue to gray depending on the lighting. You're an Ashford now. Act like it. 3 years ago, he'd said he loved that she didn't care about status markers. 3 years ago, he'd called her authenticity refreshing. 3 years ago, he'd been lying. Maya touched the small antique ring on her right hand, the only jewelry she wore that wasn't smart-enabled. Eleanor had given it to her 6 months before the old woman died. This was mine when I had nothing, Eleanor had said, pressing the plain silver band into Maya's palm. Before the money, before the empire, before I forgot what mattered. Keep it. Remember what real wealth feels like, Maya? David's tone sharpened. Are you even listening? She turned to him, arranging her face into the expression she'd perfected over 3 years of Sunday dinners and charity galas. Interested. Supportive. Just dim enough not to threaten. Of course. Your mother's announcement. The new property acquisition in the Vertigo district, not just any acquisition. David's chest puffed slightly. The entire southeastern quadrant. 30 buildings. Patricia Ashford, real estate empress, expanding her domain. He paused. Chloe helped structure the deal. Her analytics algorithm identified the investment opportunity before anyone else. There it was. Chloe Whitmore, whose neural implant was 3 generations newer than Maya's basic model. Chloe, whose family owned the largest personal branding agency in the city. Chloe, who'd been at David's side in 4 separate photos that had auto-populated on Maya's feed this week. Their influence scores intertwining in ways the algorithm recognized as power coupling potential. That's wonderful, Maya said. Chloe's very talented. David studied her face, searching for the jealousy he wanted to find. When she gave him nothing but placid agreement, his expression flickered with something like disappointment. He wanted her to fight. He wanted her to play the role of the insecure wife so he could justify what was coming. Maya had discovered that 3 weeks ago, standing in Patricia's study where the walls were embedded with privacy screens that could block any recording device. Except Maya hadn't been recording. She'd been returning family photos, arriving early because the housekeeper's automated schedule had been visible on the house system. She'd overheard everything through the wall speakers Patricia had forgotten to disable. 5 years. 8 million in trust fund money. 40% of the real estate portfolio. The numbers had been clear in Patricia's voice as she'd coached David through the final stretch of the charade. Just 2 more years of playing house with the charity case. Then you divorce her, marry Chloe like you should have from the start, and secure your inheritance. Eleanor's will was explicit: 5 years of marriage to prove you're not impulsive. After that, you're free, except Eleanor's will said something entirely different. Maya had verified that yesterday, sitting across from Marcus Harrison in his office while Sophie drew pictures in the corner. Marcus, whose steady brown eyes had looked at her with something that made her breath catch. Marcus, who'd drafted Eleanor's will and knew exactly what the old woman had intended. Your grandmother would be proud, Maya said now, watching David's face. Of you carrying on her legacy. Something shifted in David's expression: guilt, maybe, or the memory of the grandmother who'd actually seen through him. But it passed quickly, replaced by the smooth confidence his facial optimization surgery had been designed to project. She would. He checked his implant, the holographic display only visible to his enhanced retinas. Mother's ready. Let's go. The main hall of the Valtor estate had been designed by architects who understood that wealth wasn't just displayed, it was experienced through every sense. The floor was temperature-regulated marble embedded with haptic feedback that responded to footsteps, creating subtle vibrations that matched the classical music flowing from invisible speakers. The walls were alive with projection mapping that turned the room into whatever environment Patricia desired. Tonight, a garden of bioluminescent flowers that had been extinct for 30 years, Maya moved through the crowd, her neural implant automatically identifying each guest. The Chens from the Horizon District, net worth $42 million. The DuPonts who'd made their fortune in neural enhancement surgery. The Kims whose daughter had just been accepted into the Mars Colony program. The ultimate status symbol, Patricia held court near the center of the room, her body a testament to anti-aging technology that made her look 40 instead of 58. She wore a dress that cost more than Maya's apartment, the one David insisted they only visit when absolutely necessary, maintaining his primary residence at a luxury complex where Maya's basic neural implant couldn't even access the building's full amenities. Maya. Patricia's smile was as carefully constructed as everything else about her. How lovely. You're wearing the dress David selected. It suits you much better than your usual choices. The words landed like they always did, wrapped in politeness, edged with dismissal. Around them, guests' implants would be recording the interaction, their AI assistants analyzing tone and body language, feeding data into the endless social calculus that determined who mattered. Thank you, Patricia. Maya kept her voice warm. You have such excellent taste. Yes, well. Patricia's eyes swept over her, cataloging everything Maya lacked. David tells me you're still working at that learning center. The one in the Brightside District. The Brightside District, where neural implants were basic models given out by the government. Where children learned on ancient holographic displays instead of direct neural interface. Where Maya spent her afternoons teaching kids to read from actual books because their parents couldn't afford the neural learning downloads that made traditional education obsolete. I am, Maya said. We just secured funding for 5 more reading pods. How quaint. Patricia turned to greet another guest, dismissing Maya with the efficiency of someone who'd spent decades perfecting the art of social hierarchy. Do give them my regards. Cameron appeared at Maya's elbow, his cologne an expensive blend that his pheromone enhancers made irresistible to certain genetic profiles. Not Maya's, she'd long since recognized the calculated nature of his charm, still slumming with the basic kids. He held a glass of whiskey older than Maya, the smart glass analyzing his vitals and adjusting the alcohol content to his optimal level. David says you're quite dedicated. Very noble. Very. Eleanor, the way he said Eleanor's name, with affection wrapped in mockery, made Maya's jaw tighten. Eleanor had been different. Eleanor had built the empire from nothing, remembered what hunger felt like, understood that money couldn't buy character. Eleanor had died 2 years ago, leaving a will that her daughter and grandsons had interpreted exactly as she'd known they would. Eleanor understood what mattered, Maya said quietly. Eleanor was a dinosaur. Cameron leaned closer, his voice dropping. She made her fortune before neural enhancement, before personal branding, before we figured out that success isn't about character, it's about optimization. You can be authentic all you want, Maya, but in this world? You're just code that hasn't been updated. He walked away before she could respond, leaving Maya standing alone in a room full of people whose neural implants were all networked together, sharing information, calculating social value, determining who was rising and who was falling in the endless game of status. Her own implant buzzed, a private message. Marcus Harrison had forwarded a document. Eleanor's will, sections highlighted. The sections Patricia had never shown David. The sections that said if David divorced Maya after 5 years but before 10, everything transferred to her instead. Eleanor's final revenge against the family she'd created but no longer recognized. Maya closed the file, her heartbeat steady. 2 more years. She could survive 2 more years of this performance. There you are. David appeared again, Chloe at his side. Chloe, whose platinum hair was actually platinum, nanothreads woven into each strand that responded to her mood, shimmering brighter when she was pleased. Right now, she was radiant. Maya. Chloe's smile was professionally warm, the kind her branding agency taught its clients to deploy. I was just telling David about the new social optimization algorithm we're beta testing. It can predict relationship compatibility based on genetic markers, behavioral patterns, and influence scores. Fascinating stuff. Sounds complicated, Maya said. Oh, it is. Chloe's hand brushed David's arm, the gesture casual but calculated. Their implants would register the touch, feed it into the algorithm, adjust their compatibility scores in real time. But the results are incredible. The algorithm can identify optimal partnerships with 94% accuracy. It even flagged David and me as a potential match. Before we'd even met officially. The technology practically predicted us. David's cheeks colored slightly, the only genuine emotion Maya had seen from him all evening. He was embarrassed. Not by Chloe's obviousness, but by the fact that his wife was witnessing it. Technology is amazing, Maya agreed. She met Chloe's eyes, holding the contact just long enough to see the flicker of confusion. Maya was supposed to be threatened, upset, playing the role of the inadequate wife. I'm sure the algorithm is very accurate, it is. Chloe's confidence wavered slightly. I mean, obviously there are factors it can't measure. Emotional compatibility. Shared values, that sort of thing, the things Eleanor cared about, Maya said softly. The name hung in the air between them. David shifted uncomfortably. Chloe's expression remained neutral, but her platinum hair dimmed slightly, irritation. Well. Chloe recovered smoothly. I should circulate. David, we still need to discuss the Vertigo investment. Maya, lovely seeing you. She glided away, her dress leaving traces of designer pheromones that would make everyone she passed feel slightly more favorable toward her. Technology leveraged for social advantage at every possible level. David watched her go, his expression unguarded for just a moment. He wanted to follow. He wanted to be with someone who made sense in his world. Someone the algorithm approved of, someone who didn't remind him of the grandmother who'd seen through all his optimization and found him wanting. She's very beautiful, Maya said, David startled, as if he'd forgotten she was there. What? No, I mean, she's a colleague. A friend. Patricia likes her. Patricia has excellent taste, Maya echoed, using his mother's own words. The announcement came with perfect timing, Patricia's voice amplified through the room's audio system. Honored guests, family, friends, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate another milestone in the Ashford legacy. The crowd turned, their collective attention creating a shift in the room's energy that the haptic floor registered. Adjusting the vibrations to match the moment's importance. Maya stood next to David, playing the role of supportive wife. Her implant buzzed again, Marcus, checking in. She ignored it, focusing on Patricia's speech about expansion and vision and the future of the Ashford Empire. And of course, Patricia continued, her eyes finding David and Maya in the crowd. None of this would be possible without family. My son David, who's proven himself worthy of his grandmother Eleanor's faith. In 2 years, when the trust fund matures, he'll take his place as a full partner in Ashford Properties. A legacy secured, 2 years. The number hung in the air, significant only to those who knew what it meant. Applause rippled through the room, guests' implants registering their approval. boosting the Ashford family's collective influence score. Maya clapped too, her smile perfect, her performance flawless. David's hand found hers, squeezing gently. To everyone watching, it looked like affection. Maya felt the truth, relief that she was cooperating, gratitude that she wasn't making this harder than it had to be. The party continued for hours, an endless parade of networking and status displays and algorithmic social climbing. Maya played her part, made small talk, accepted compliments about her dress while ignoring the undertone that suggested she needed all the help she could get. It was nearly midnight when she found herself alone on the balcony again. The city spread below in layers of light, the bright towers of the Vertigo district where people like Patricia lived, the middle zones where Maya's apartment waited, the dim outskirts where her learning center served kids whose parents would never afford neural optimization. You looked like you needed air. Maya turned. Marcus Harrison stood in the doorway, uncomfortable in a rented suit, his neural implant the same basic model as hers, functional but not impressive, marking him as successful enough to matter but not wealthy enough to truly belong. Marcus. Her voice came out more relieved than she'd intended. What are you doing here? Patricia invited several attorneys to witness the announcement. Professional courtesy. He moved to stand beside her, careful to maintain appropriate distance. His daughter Sophie was with his mother tonight, he'd mentioned in his last message. He'd been reluctant to come, but professional obligation demanded it. Did you see? Maya stopped herself. Too dangerous to discuss the will here, where any implant could be recording. I saw everything. Marcus's voice was quiet, meant only for her. You're doing well. Better than I expected. I'm doing what Eleanor would want. Eleanor would want you to be happy. The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Marcus had loved his wife deeply. Maya had seen the photos in his office, the way his voice softened when he mentioned her. He understood loss, understood loving someone who saw past the surface to the real person underneath. I will be, Maya said. In 2 years, 2 months, and 16 days, Marcus's lips quirked, not quite a smile, but close. That specific? I'm keeping track. They stood in silence, watching the city breathe. Somewhere below, children were sleeping in apartments without climate control, dreaming dreams that didn't include neural enhancement or influence scores or the kind of optimization that turned people into products. Somewhere below, real life was happening. Messy and authentic and valuable in ways the Ashfords would never understand. Sophie asks about you, Marcus said finally. She wants to know if you'll be back at the center this week. I will. I never miss a Tuesday. She made you something. A drawing. She wanted to give it to you herself, but he pulled out his pocket screen, showing an image. Sophie had drawn Maya surrounded by children, all of them holding books. At the top, in careful letters, Miss Maya is magic. Maya's throat tightened. This was what mattered. Not Patricia's empire or David's inheritance or Chloe's algorithm. Children who believed in magic because someone took the time to read them stories. Tell her I love it. Maya managed. Tell her yourself. Marcus met her eyes. Tuesday. At the center. When you're done being in Ashford for the day, the way he said it, when you're done being in Ashford, acknowledged the truth they both knew. This wasn't who she was. This was what she was enduring. Marcus, she stopped, unsure what she meant to say. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for being real in a world that's forgotten how. He waited, patient as always, giving her space to find the words. Nothing, she said finally. Just, thank you. For what? For reminding me why I'm doing this. His expression shifted, something warm and complicated passing across his face. For a moment, Maya wondered what it would be like to be with someone who saw her clearly, who valued the same things, who didn't need an algorithm to recognize connection, but that was 2 years away. 2 years and 16 days, I should go back inside, she said. David will wonder where I am, will he? The question was gentle, but it cut deep. No. David wouldn't wonder. David was probably with Chloe right now, discussing their algorithmically perfect compatibility while Maya stood on the balcony with another man, feeling more seen in 5 minutes than she'd felt in 3 years of marriage. Goodbye, Marcus. See you Tuesday, Maya. She walked back into the party, back into the performance, back into the life she was enduring until Eleanor's final lesson could be delivered. Patricia was still holding court, Cameron was charming a group of investors, David was nowhere to be seen. Maya's implant buzzed, a message from David. Took Chloe home. She had too much champagne. Be back in an hour. Long enough for what? A conversation about investment strategies? A preview of the life they'd share after the divorce. Maya deleted the message and poured herself real champagne from the fountain, the kind without nanosignatures or social tracking. She raised the glass in a silent toast to Eleanor, wherever the old woman's consciousness had gone after the neural backup had been deleted per her final wishes. I'm going to make you proud, Maya whispered. I'm going to show them what real wealth looks like. The champagne was dry and perfect, exactly the kind of thing Patricia would approve of. Maya finished it in one long swallow, then set the glass down and went to find Cameron. If she was going to survive 2 more years in this family, she needed to understand every piece of the game board. The night was young, and Maya Chen had finally learned how to play. The anniversary party blazed across 3 floors of the Valtor estate, each level a carefully orchestrated demonstration of wealth that would auto-populate on 10,000 social feeds by morning. Maya Chen stood on the second-floor gallery, watching champagne fountains cascade through holographic projections of her wedding photos, images of a younger, stupider version of herself who'd believed David Ashford when he'd whispered that authenticity mattered more than money. 5 years ago tonight, she'd married him in her modest apartment, surrounded by books instead of crystal. David had traced his fingers along her spine and promised her simple was enough. The neural implant at her temple, still the basic government issue model, buzzed with incoming connection requests from guests below, their premium processors automatically tagging her as David Ashford's wife in their social calculus algorithms. Not Maya Chen, founder of the Sunshine Literacy Initiative. Not Maya Chen, who'd expanded from one after-school reading program to 5 thriving centers serving 800 children. Just an appendage to the Ashford empire, a footnote in their carefully curated dynasty. Her dress tonight had cost 4 months of her old librarian's salary, deep blue silk threaded with adaptive fibers that shifted with her body temperature, a technology she'd once considered obscene extravagance. Now she wore it like armor. The fabric whispered against her skin as she descended the curved staircase, each step a performance she'd perfected over 60 months of playing a role. Patricia Ashford held court near the main champagne fountain, her body a testament to anti-aging technology that made her look 40 instead of 58. She'd had her cheekbones sharpened last month, the bone restructuring done at the same clinic where Cameron got his quarterly testosterone optimization. The Ashford matriarch turned as Maya approached, her smile activating the micro-muscles that projected warmth while her eyes calculated social value with the precision of her premium neural processor. Maya, darling. Patricia's voice carried across the marble floor, designed to draw attention. Heads turned, guests whose collective net worth exceeded small nations, their implants automatically recording the interaction for later analysis. 5 years. Can you believe it? You've come so far from that little apartment. The words landed like they always did. Wrapped in silk, edged with dismissal. Maya had learned to hear the subtext, you were nothing when David found you. We've elevated you. Be grateful, it's been quite a journey, Maya agreed, keeping her voice warm. Her own implant buzzed, a private message from Marcus Harrison. She ignored it, focusing on Patricia's performance. We're so proud of your little foundation. Patricia gestured to the projection screens displaying the evening's charitable component, the Ashford family's annual donation to various causes, including a modest sum to Maya's literacy centers. 5 locations now? How industrious. Almost like a real business, Cameron materialized at his mother's elbow. His cologne an expensive pheromone blend designed to trigger attraction in specific genetic profiles. His neural implant glowed at his temple, the newest model, naturally, with a processor that could run complex social simulations in real time. He held a glass of whiskey older than Maya, the smart glass analyzing his vitals and adjusting the alcohol content to maintain his optimal performance state, still teaching the basics to read actual books. He laughed, the sound carefully modulated by his vocal enhancement software to be maximally charming. How delightfully retro. Like teaching them to use rotary phones. Some things don't need upgrading, Maya said quietly, everything needs upgrading. Cameron's eyes swept over her, his implant likely cataloging every detail and comparing her to some algorithmic ideal. That's what separates winners from. He gestured vaguely at her. Well. From those who think effort equals success, Patricia touched his arm, a gentle correction visible only to those watching closely. Too obvious, the gesture said. We're celebrating tonight. Cameron, darling, why don't you check on the catering? I want to make sure the dessert presentation is perfect. He drifted away, leaving Maya alone with her mother-in-law in the middle of the crowded room. Patricia leaned closer, her voice dropping to a confidential murmur that her implant would ensure remained private from recording devices within 3 meters. I wanted to thank you, Maya. Truly. Patricia's hand found Maya's arm, the touch as calculated as everything else about her. I know these 5 years haven't been easy. David can be difficult. But you've handled everything with such grace. Such maturity, Maya's heart began to pound. This was new territory. When the divorce is finalized next week, Patricia continued, her smile never wavering, I want you to know the family won't forget your discretion. We'll make sure the settlement lets you continue your charity work. You'll be comfortable. Not wealthy, of course, but comfortable. The words hit like ice water. Maya had known this moment was coming, had prepared for it. Documented it, built an entire legal case around it, but hearing Patricia say it so casually, so confidently, made rage bloom hot in her chest. That's very generous, Maya managed, her voice steady through sheer force of will. It's the least we can do. Patricia's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. You played your part beautifully. Eleanor's ridiculous will required 5 years of marriage. Well, here we are. 5 years tonight. Tomorrow, David files the papers, and everyone moves on to where they should have been all along. She squeezed Maya's arm once, a gesture that might have looked affectionate to any guests watching. Chloe will be so pleased. She and David have been planning their engagement for months. The algorithm predicted their compatibility at 96%. Can you imagine? 96%. You and David were barely 40, Maya's throat closed. She'd known about Chloe, had seen them together at events, had even befriended the sleek blonde under the guise of making things easier for everyone. But hearing Patricia discuss it so openly, treating Maya's marriage like a business contract that had reached its expiration date, made something crack inside her careful facade. Where is David? Maya asked, handling some last-minute details upstairs. Patricia's smile sharpened. He'll make an appearance soon. This is your night too, after all. Your farewell to the family. She glided away to greet other guests, leaving Maya standing alone in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by people whose neural implants were all networked together, sharing information, calculating social value, determining who was rising and who was falling in the endless algorithmic game of status. Maya's implant buzzed again. Marcus, more insistent this time. She pulled out her pocket screen, turning away from the crowd to read his message. Are you okay? I can see you from here. You look like you're about to shatter. She found him across the room, standing near the dessert display with Sophie at his side. His daughter wore a blue dress that matched Maya's. The 8-year-old had insisted when Maya had taken her shopping last week. Marcus held a glass of sparkling water, uncomfortable in his rented suit, his basic neural implant marking him as successful but not wealthy, educated but not elite. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Even from this distance, Maya could see the concern in his expression, the way his jaw tightened as he watched her. They'd spent the last 18 months building the legal case that would destroy the Ashford family's carefully laid plans. Hundreds of hours in his office, poring over documents, recording evidence, preparing for this exact moment. But they'd also spent those hours talking about everything else: Sophie's progress in school, the kids at Maya's centers, the mystery novels they both loved. The kind of future they might build when this nightmare finally ended. The attraction between them had grown slowly, carefully, both of them too ethical to cross the line. While Maya remained legally bound to David, she texted back, "I'm fine. Patricia just confirmed everything." "Tomorrow David files." Marcus's response came immediately, "Then tomorrow we strike. Tonight, you survive." And tonight, David raised his glass higher. "I want to toast to the future. To new beginnings. To everyone finding exactly what they deserve." The crowd erupted in approval, glasses raised, implants glowing as they registered the moment. Chloe smiled from her position near the staircase, confident and triumphant. Patricia beamed, her plan apparently coming together perfectly. Cameron smirked, already composing the social media post that would announce his brother's upcoming divorce and advantageous remarriage. "To everyone getting what they deserve," Maya said quietly, raising her own glass. Only Marcus, still standing with Sophie near the dessert table, caught the edge in her voice. His eyes met hers across the room, and he raised his glass in a private toast. "Tomorrow," that gesture said. "Tomorrow, justice." The party continued for hours, an endless parade of congratulations and thinly veiled curiosity. Guests approached Maya with practiced sympathy, their implants feeding them data about divorce rates among mismatched couples, their algorithms calculating the probability that she'd emerge from this with anything of value. Maya played her part. She smiled at Chloe when the blonde approached with air kisses and false warmth. She thanked Patricia for the generous settlement the family was offering. She even danced with Cameron, suffering through his cologne and his condescending observations about how she'd really matured during her marriage. Through it all, she was aware of Marcus watching from the periphery, his steady presence a reminder that reality existed outside this performance. Sophie had fallen asleep on a couch near the library doors, her head pillowed on her father's jacket, and Marcus sat beside her with legal documents open on his tablet, probably reviewing their strategy for tomorrow. It was nearly midnight when Maya finally escaped to the balcony, the same spot where she'd stood months ago during Patricia's property acquisition celebration. The city sprawled below, layers of light marking the territories of wealth and poverty, success and struggle. "You survived." She turned to find Marcus standing in the doorway. Careful not to fully join her on the balcony where their interaction might be recorded by the building's external security feeds. Even now, even this close to the end, they were both too ethical to give the Ashfords ammunition. "Barely," Maya admitted, her performance mask cracking now that she was away from the crowd. "Patricia told me tonight about the divorce. She actually thanked me for my discretion. That woman has no shame." Marcus's hands clenched at his sides. "The arrogance, to stand there and dismiss you like I'm nothing." Maya finished the sentence he couldn't. "Like these 5 years were just a waiting period. An inconvenience they endured, Maya. They have no idea." She turned to face him fully, feeling fierce satisfaction cut through her exhaustion. "They actually think they won. Patricia thinks she gained Eleanor's will. David thinks he's about to collect $8 million and marry his algorithm-approved match. Cameron probably has the engagement announcement already drafted. And tomorrow," Marcus said quietly, "they learn the truth. Tomorrow I become the wealthiest person in that room." Maya gestured toward the ballroom behind them. "Tomorrow I own 40% of Patricia's real estate empire. Tomorrow the inheritance they've been planning for transfers to me instead, because Eleanor knew exactly what they'd do. Tomorrow you're free," Marcus added, his voice dropping on the last word. They stood in charged silence, the night air cool against Maya's skin after hours in the overheated ballroom. Somewhere inside, the party continued, champagne flowing, influence scores climbing, the Ashford family celebrating a victory they hadn't actually won. "Marcus?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she'd intended. "After tomorrow, when all of this is over, will you still want to know me? When I'm suddenly wealthy and complicated and probably the subject of every tabloid feed in the city." He stepped fully onto the balcony then, closing the distance between them despite the security cameras, despite the risk. He didn't touch her, they both had too much integrity for that while she remained married, but he stood close enough that Maya could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Maya Chen," he said quietly, fiercely, "I've watched you handle 5 years of calculated humiliation with more grace than most people manage on their best days. I've seen you build an empire of good while they built empires of greed. I've spent 18 months watching you refuse to compromise your ethics even when revenge would be so easy. His eyes held hers. Tomorrow you're going to be wealthy, yes. But you're not going to be different. You're still going to show up at the Brightside Center every Tuesday to read to kids whose parents can't afford neural learning downloads. You're still going to value character over status. You're still going to be exactly who you are right now. How do you know? Maya whispered, because Eleanor knew. Because I know. Because Sophie knows, she told me tonight that when you're rich, you should buy books for all the kids who need them. He smiled, soft and genuine. You surround yourself with people who see clearly. That's not going to change when your bank account does. Maya felt something in her chest loosen, some fear she hadn't acknowledged until this moment. Thank you, she managed. For what? For seeing me. Really seeing me. Even when I was pretending to be someone else, that's the easy part, Marcus said. You're terrible at pretending. Your eyes give everything away, she laughed despite herself, the sound surprising in the heavy night air. Inside, the party was winding down, guests beginning to leave, their social obligations fulfilled. Tomorrow the real work began, divorce filings, inheritance transfers, the moment when the Ashford family discovered their carefully laid plans had been their own destruction. I should go back in, Maya said, not moving. Say goodbye to guests. Play the role one last time, or, Marcus suggested, his voice careful, you could leave now. Walk away. Let David wonder where you went. Let Patricia spin explanations. You've earned the right to disappear early from your own anniversary party. The idea was intoxicating. But Maya shook her head. No. I finish this properly. I see it through to the end. She met his eyes. Eleanor would want me to stay until the last guest leaves, smile until my face hurts, and know that I won with integrity intact. Eleanor really was brilliant, Marcus agreed. She knew you'd be strong enough for all of this, she knew you'd be there to help me through it, Maya countered. That letter she left me, she practically arranged our relationship from beyond death, smart woman. Marcus's expression softened. Though I'd like to think I'd have figured out you were special all on my own. Eleanor just accelerated the inevitable, the moment stretched between them. Full of promise and anticipation. 24 hours. In 24 hours, Maya would be free. In 24 hours, they could stop pretending there was nothing between them. Tuesday, Marcus said suddenly. After everything tomorrow, after the lawyers and the inheritance transfer and the press feeds explode, Tuesday morning, can we have coffee? Just coffee. Like normal people whose lives just imploded in spectacular fashion, exactly. His smile was crooked, genuine. Sophie will be at school. We can go to that terrible diner you love, the one that still serves real eggs instead of protein paste. We can talk about mystery novels and bad puns and absolutely nothing related to the Ashford family. That sounds perfect, Maya said quietly, it's a date. Marcus stepped back, restoring professional distance, though his eyes promised everything words couldn't. Now go finish your performance. Show them grace and strength. Tomorrow we show them justice. Maya returned to the party, her spine straight, her smile serene. David had disappeared upstairs with Chloe, not even pretending anymore, confident that Maya had accepted her fate. Patricia held court near the exit, thanking guests for attending, her satisfaction radiating through every calculated gesture. Cameron intercepted Maya near the champagne fountain, his expression slightly softened by expensive whiskey. You know. You weren't terrible, he said, his vocal enhancements offline for once, making him sound almost human. As sister-in-laws go. A little boring, maybe. A little too earnest. But not terrible. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Maya replied, don't get used to it. He raised his glass in mock salute. After next week, you'll be back to your regular life. No more awkward family dinners. Consider it a gift. Oh, I'm definitely considering everything that's about to happen a gift, Maya assured him. He wandered off, missing the edge in her voice. They all missed it, Patricia, Cameron, David, Chloe, all of them so convinced of their victory that they couldn't see their destruction approaching. By 1 a.m, the last guests had departed. The Valtor estate stood silent except for cleaning staff whose neural implants marked them as service class, visible but not worthy of social attention in the Ashford hierarchy. Maya stood in the empty ballroom, looking at the holographic projections of her wedding photos still cascading down the champagne fountain. 5 years ago, she'd believed those promises. 5 years ago, she'd thought authenticity mattered. 5 years ago, she'd been wrong about David but right about everything else. Ready to go? David appeared on the staircase, his tie loosened, his enhanced eyes slightly unfocused from champagne. I'm staying at the office tonight. Big day tomorrow. Paperwork, paperwork. That's what he called filing for divorce, ending their marriage, collecting what he thought was his inheritance. Of course, Maya said smoothly. I'll see you tomorrow then, at the lawyer's. 10 a.m. He paused, something like guilt crossing his features. Maya, for what it's worth, this wasn't personal. We just want different things. You're right, she agreed. We do want different things. But that's okay. Everyone's about to get exactly what they want, David nodded, satisfied with her compliance. And left through the front entrance where his BMW waited. Maya watched him go, this man she'd loved, this man who'd betrayed her for an inheritance he'd never actually claim. Her pocket screen buzzed. Marcus had sent a single message, Eleanor's laughing somewhere. I can feel it, Maya smiled, genuine and fierce, there in the empty ballroom with holographic memories of a marriage that had been a lie. She texted back, tomorrow we make her proud. Tomorrow we win. She drove home in her modest Honda, through the layers of the city, past the bright towers where the Ashfords lived, through her own middle-class neighborhood, past the dim outskirts where her literacy centers served children who'd never know what neural optimization felt like. Real wealth, she thought, remembering Eleanor's words. Real success. Real victory. Tomorrow, the Ashford family would learn what those words actually meant. Tomorrow, Maya Chen would show them that the long game was the only game worth playing, and she couldn't wait. The divorce papers arrived via encrypted neural transmission at precisely 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, downloaded directly into Maya Chen's basic government-issue implant with the cold efficiency of the Ashford family lawyers. She was sitting in the Brightside Learning Center's main room, surrounded by 20 children who couldn't afford neural learning downloads, teaching them to sound out words from actual paper books when the notification buzzed against her temple. David Ashford versus Maya Chen. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences. Maya finished the sentence she was reading, something about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, before excusing herself to the bathroom. The children barely noticed, too absorbed in the story. In the small staff restroom with its flickering fluorescent lights and cracked mirror, Maya read through the legal filing that ended 5 years of performance. The settlement offer was almost insulting in its generosity. $200,000. Enough to live comfortably for years, to fund her literacy work, to disappear quietly back into the middle-class anonymity from which David had plucked her. The Ashfords were buying her silence, her dignity, her willingness to fade away without scandal. Maya deleted the files and walked back to finish story time. The children deserved her full attention. The Ashfords could wait. By noon, her pocket screen showed 15 missed calls from David's lawyers, 3 from David himself, and 1 from Patricia Ashford. Maya ignored them all, leading her students through reading exercises while her mind calculated timelines. The divorce petition had been filed this morning. The inheritance transfer would trigger automatically within 48 hours once she signed her acknowledgement. She had 2 days to prepare for the moment the Ashford family discovered what Eleanor's will actually said. 2 days until they learned their 3-year scheme had been their own destruction. Marcus Harrison's message arrived during lunch, papers filed. Are you ready? Maya texted back one word, yes. Then she returned to her students, teaching vocabulary words to children whose parents worked 3 jobs to afford basic neural implants, children who would never know what genetic optimization felt like, children who were exactly why she'd endured 5 years of humiliation. The Ashford family thought they'd won. They had 48 hours left to believe that lie, The law office of Harrison Associates occupied the third floor of a converted brownstone in a neighborhood the Ashfords would consider quaint at best, dangerously middle class at worst. Maya arrived at 6 p.m., after her students had left, still wearing the simple dress she'd worn to teach in, no adaptive fibers, no temperature regulation, just cotton that wrinkled and showed sweat. Her Honda Civic was parked 2 blocks away because the building had no private garage, no valet service, no status markers that would register on anyone's social feed. Perfect. Marcus was alone in his office, his premium suit jacket discarded over a chair, his tie loosened in a way that made him look younger than 39. Sophie was at soccer practice, he'd texted earlier, giving them privacy for what needed to happen next. His desk was covered with documents, printouts. Because paper couldn't be hacked or remotely accessed, because Eleanor Ashford had taught him to trust analog when it mattered most, they filed, Maya said, closing the door behind her. I saw. Marcus gestured to his own screen, where David's divorce petition glowed with damning clarity. Very generous settlement offer. Almost like they're desperate for you to sign quickly and disappear. 200,000. Maya moved to stand beside his desk, looking down at the evidence they'd compiled over 18 months. Recordings, financial documents, email trails, witness statements. That's what they think my silence is worth. They're about to learn how badly they miscalculated. Marcus pulled up another file, Eleanor's will, the sections highlighted in yellow that Patricia had deliberately hidden from David. The inheritance transfer triggers automatically once you acknowledge the divorce filing. You don't even have to sign the settlement. Just acknowledge receipt of the petition. Maya studied the legal language she'd read 100 times. The words never got less satisfying. Should David Ashford divorce his wife after 5 years but before 10 years of marriage, the entire trust fund and real estate portfolio shall transfer to said wife instead. Eleanor had been ruthlessly precise. 5 years minimum to prove David could commit to something. 10 years maximum to prove he valued character over convenience. David had filed for divorce at exactly 5 years and 3 days. The inheritance was Maya's, $28 million, she said quietly. $8 million in trust funds, $20 million in real estate holdings. A fortune built by a woman who'd started with nothing, now transferring to another woman who valued authenticity over appearance, plus controlling interest in 3 charitable foundations Eleanor established, Marcus added. Which means you'll have the infrastructure to deploy that wealth immediately. No waiting, no complex transfers. Eleanor set this up so you could start changing lives the day the inheritance cleared. Maya turned to face him, leaning against the desk. Marcus had rolled up his sleeves while working, exposing forearms that showed he actually did physical labor sometimes, coaching Sophie's soccer team, building bookshelves for his home office, living a real life instead of optimizing every moment for maximum efficiency. I need to tell you something, Maya said. Before this happens. Before everything changes. Marcus went very still, his brown eyes fixed on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. When this transfers tomorrow, I'm going to be wealthy. Very wealthy. The kind of wealthy that changes everything, who approaches you, who wants things from you, who sees you as a target or a meal ticket or an opportunity. Her voice stayed steady through force of will. I need to know that you'll still see me. The real me. Not the woman with $28 million, Maya. He stood, moving around the desk to stand close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and probably not expensive, chosen for personal preference rather than pheromone optimization. I've watched you handle 5 years of calculated cruelty with more integrity than most people manage in a lifetime. You built a literacy empire from nothing while your husband plotted your disposal. You befriended the woman he was cheating with as part of your strategy. You played the long game when revenge would have been so easy and so satisfying. He took her hand, the touch sending electricity up her arm. Tomorrow you're going to be wealthy, yes. But you're not going to change. You're still going to show up at Brightside on Tuesday mornings. You're still going to value paper books over neural downloads. You're still going to wear cotton dresses that wrinkle instead of adaptive fibers that cost a month's salary. How do you know? Maya whispered. Because Eleanor knew. Because Sophie knows, she told me yesterday that when you're rich, you should buy 1,000 books for kids like her. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. Because I know you, Maya Chen. I've spent 18 months watching you refuse to compromise your values even when it would have been easier. Wealth doesn't change character. It just amplifies what was already there. They stood in the lamplight of his modest office, surrounded by evidence of the Ashford family's greed and Eleanor's brilliant revenge, holding hands like teenagers at a school dance. The air between them hummed with everything they'd been carefully not acknowledging for months. After tomorrow, Marcus said quietly, after the inheritance transfers and the scandal breaks and the Ashfords realize what happened, I'm taking you to dinner. Somewhere small and authentic where they don't scan neural implants at the door. Somewhere we can talk about mystery novels and terrible puns and absolutely nothing related to revenge or inheritance or legal strategy. That sounds perfect, Maya managed, fair warning though. His eyes crinkled with humor. Sophie's already planning your wedding. She has a Pinterest board, Maya laughed despite the tension. We haven't even had our first date, my daughter believes in efficiency. Marcus was smiling now, that warm genuine expression that had sustained Maya through the worst moments of the past 18 months. Also, she really wants you to be her mom. She's been very clear about that. The weight of those words, the future they implied, the life they could build together, made Maya's chest tight. Marcus, I don't want to rush anything. After 5 years of performance, I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not playing a role, I know. He squeezed her hand once, then released it, restoring professional distance. Which is why dinner is just dinner. No expectations. No pressure. Just two people who've been through hell together, celebrating that it's finally over, and if it becomes more than dinner, then we'll figure it out together. Slowly. Authentically. He moved back to his desk. Becoming attorney Marcus instead of potential something more Marcus. But first, we have a family to destroy. Maya pulled out her pocket screen. Should I acknowledge the divorce petition now, wait until morning? Let them have one more night thinking they've won. Marcus's expression turned fierce. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., you acknowledge receipt. By 9:30, the inheritance transfer will process automatically. By 10, Patricia Ashford will receive notification that she no longer controls 40% of her real estate empire. By noon, the entire city will know the truth, and David will learn that the $8 million he thought he was securing is now yours. Along with the properties. Along with Eleanor's charitable foundations. Marcus pulled up a document. I've already drafted the press release for the Eleanor Ashford Foundation's relaunch under your direction. The moment the transfer completes, we announce your plans, literacy centers, affordable housing, community development. Everything Eleanor believed in, Maya read through the press release, seeing her vision articulated in formal language. The Sunshine Literacy Initiative would merge with Eleanor's foundations, creating the largest private literacy program in the state. The affordable housing projects would transform Patricia's luxury developments into homes for working families. The community centers would provide free childcare, tutoring, job training. It's perfect, she said. Eleanor left detailed instructions. Marcus's voice softened. She knew exactly what you'd do with the inheritance. She designed everything, the will, the trap, even bringing us together, to ensure her wealth would finally be used for good instead of maintaining dynasty. She was remarkable, so are you. The way Marcus said it, simple, factual, certain, made Maya believe it. They spent the next 3 hours reviewing strategy. Maya would acknowledge the divorce petition at 9 a.m. Marcus would be present as her attorney when the inheritance transferred. They'd scheduled a press conference for noon at the Brightside Learning Center. Surrounded by children and teachers, announcing the foundation's relaunch. The optics were deliberate, Maya claiming her inheritance not in some luxury hotel, but in the modest community center where she'd built her real success. By 9 p.m., they'd covered every contingency. Maya stood to leave, gathering her bag, preparing to drive home to the apartment she'd shared with David, though he hadn't slept there in weeks, too busy with Chloe, too confident the divorce would proceed smoothly. Maya? Marcus's voice stopped her at the door. One more thing, she turned back. He was holding a small box, its surface plain and unadorned. Eleanor left this for you. Instructions said to give it to you the night before the inheritance transferred. Maya took the box with shaking hands. Inside was a simple silver necklace with a small pendant, no smart technology, no status markers, just elegant metalwork formed into the shape of a book, and a note in Eleanor's distinctive handwriting: real wealth is measured in lives changed, not dollars accumulated. Go change the world, dear girl. Make me proud. Maya's vision blurred. She really did plan everything, down to the last detail, Marcus confirmed. She even left instructions about the necklace. Said you should wear it tomorrow when you acknowledge the divorce petition. So David sees it and knows, even if he doesn't understand yet, that his grandmother chose you over him. Maya fastened the necklace, feeling its light weight settle against her collarbone. Tomorrow she'd wear it with her simplest dress, her most modest appearance, letting the only valuable thing about her outfit be the gift from a woman who'd understood what actually mattered. Thank you, she said to Marcus. For everything. For believing me when I told you about the scheme. For spending 18 months building this case. For showing me that not all Ashford attorneys are corrupt. I'm not an Ashford attorney, Marcus corrected gently. I was Eleanor's attorney. Now I'm yours. There's a difference. The distinction mattered more than Maya could articulate. She nodded once and left. Driving her modest Honda through the city streets, past the bright towers where the Ashfords lived, through her middle-class neighborhood, parking in the covered garage of the apartment building where she'd lived for 7 years, the apartment felt empty without David, but Maya had long since stopped thinking of it as their home. This was her space, filled with her books and her mission and her authentic life. Tomorrow it would also contain the resources to expand that life exponentially. She made tea, actual tea, steeped in hot water, no nutrient optimization or enhancement additives, and sat on her worn couch with Eleanor's necklace warm against her skin. Her pocket screen showed 17 more messages from David's lawyers. Increasingly urgent. They wanted her signature on the settlement, wanted this wrapped up cleanly, wanted her gone before anyone started asking uncomfortable questions. Tomorrow they'd get their answers. Just not the ones they expected. Maya slept better that night than she had in 5 years. The Brightside Learning Center opened at 8 a.m. for early drop-off. Maya arrived at 7:30, wearing a simple gray dress and Eleanor's silver necklace, her basic neural implant registering her arrival on the building's outdated security system. The morning was cool, autumn settling over the city, leaves beginning to turn colors that no holographic projection could quite capture. Her students started arriving at 8. Their parents tired from night shifts and early commutes, grateful for the free program that gave their children a safe place to learn. Maya greeted each one by name, helped them hang up backpacks, got them settled with breakfast the center provided, real food, not optimized nutrition paste, because children deserved the dignity of choosing between cereal and toast. At 8:45, she stepped into her small office and pulled out her pocket screen. Marcus had sent a message, ready when you are. I'm standing by. Maya opened the divorce petition, reread David's claims of irreconcilable differences, his generous settlement offer, his assumption that she'd sign gratefully and disappear. Then she navigated to the acknowledgement form that would officially notify the court she'd received his filing. Her finger hovered over the submit button. This was it. The moment 3 years of planning crystallized into action. The moment Eleanor's trap sprang shut. The moment the Ashford family learned that greed had consequences. Maya thought about the children in the next room, practicing their letters on paper tablets because their parents couldn't afford neural learning implants. She thought about Eleanor, who'd built an empire and then watched her family forget what it was for. She thought about Marcus and Sophie, about the possibility of building something real after 5 years of living a lie. She pressed submit, the acknowledgement transmitted instantly, downloading into the court's system, triggering automated protocols that would notify David's lawyers, process the filing, and, most critically, signal Eleanor's trust administrators that the 5-year marriage had ended. Maya's screen pinged with confirmation. Then, 30 seconds later, another notification: inheritance transfer initiated. Eleanor Ashford Estate. Processing. She watched the loading bar crawl across her screen, each percentage point representing another piece of the Ashford fortune transferring from David's expected possession to her actual ownership. 75%. 85%. 95%, complete. Her banking app exploded with notifications. $8 million deposited from the Ashford Family Trust. Property deeds transferred, 15 buildings, varying in size and value, collectively worth $20 million. Controlling shares in 3 charitable foundations. Full access to Eleanor's private files, including evidence of Patricia's manipulation that Maya could deploy if the Ashfords tried to contest the transfer. Maya Chen, who'd made $45,000 a year as a librarian, who'd lived modestly even after marrying into wealth, who'd never cared about money beyond its ability to fund her mission. Maya Chen was now worth $28 million. Her hands didn't shake. Her breath stayed steady. Because the money wasn't the point. It never had been, the money was a tool. Eleanor's final gift. The resources to transform her modest literacy program into a movement that could change thousands of lives. Her screen lit up with an incoming call. Marcus, his voice bright with barely contained excitement, "It's done. The transfer completed. You're officially the primary beneficiary of Eleanor's estate, I saw," Maya said. "How long until Patricia knows?" The trust administrators sent notification 3 minutes ago. Should be reaching her lawyers right about. A new notification interrupted him. David Ashford calling. Then another, Patricia Ashford calling. Then a third, Cameron Ashford calling. Now, Marcus finished. They know. Maya ignored all 3 calls. What happens next, legally? Nothing. The transfer is complete and irrevocable. Eleanor's will was challenged twice during probate and upheld both times. There's no mechanism for them to contest this. The will explicitly states that divorcing you after 5 years triggers the transfer to you, so they're just going to have to accept it. They're going to try everything they can think of to fight it, Marcus corrected. Lawyers, threats, probably attempts to buy you off for more than the original settlement. Patricia won't go down without a fight. Good. Maya's voice hardened. Let her fight. Let them all fight. Every attempt they make will just prove Eleanor was right about them. The press conference is scheduled for noon. I'll meet you at 11:30 to go over talking points. See you then. Maya ended the call and returned to her students, who were settling in for morning reading time. None of them knew their teacher had just become a multimillionaire. None of them would care. They cared that Miss Maya did character voices and made stories come alive and believed they were smart enough to learn. That's what mattered. Not the money. The mission. At 9:45, her screen showed 43 missed calls from various Ashford family members and their lawyers. Maya ignored them all, reading Charlotte's Web to 20 children who hung on every word. At 10:15, there was a commotion at the center's front entrance. Maya looked up from the book to see David Ashford pushing past the front desk volunteer, his enhanced blue-gray eyes wild, his premium suit disheveled in a way his image consultants would never approve. Maya. He stormed into the main room, causing children to shrink back in alarm. We need to talk. Now, Maya stood slowly, placing her bookmark carefully, her mind cataloging every detail of this moment. David's desperation. The children's fear. The way his presence contaminated her sanctuary with his panic. David. Her voice stayed calm. Controlled. You're scaring the children. Please wait outside. The inheritance, the money, my lawyers just called and said. He stopped, seeming to realize he was publicly admitting to his scheme. We need to discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss. Maya turned to her students. Kids, why don't you go work on your worksheets for a few minutes? I'll be right back. She walked past David toward the small conference room, not checking to see if he followed. Of course he followed. He was desperate. The conference room was barely 10 feet square, furnished with a donated table and mismatched chairs. David closed the door and immediately exploded. What the hell did you do? The lawyer said the entire inheritance transferred to you. $8 million. Plus mother's properties. They said grandmothers will specify that divorcing you after 5 years triggers some kind of penalty clause. It's not a penalty, Maya interrupted quietly. It's exactly what Eleanor intended. That's impossible. Mother told me the will required 5 years of marriage or I'd lose everything. She said after 5 years, I'd inherit and be free to. He stopped again, realizing he was confessing. Free to marry Chloe? Maya supplied. Free to divorce the inadequate wife who never fit into your world? Free to collect your inheritance and move on like I never existed? David's face drained of color. You knew. You knew about your plan to use me as a placeholder wife for 5 years while you waited out Eleanor's requirement? About Patricia coaching you through the performance? About Chloe waiting in the wings for the moment you could trade up? Maya's voice never rose above conversational volume. Yes, David. I knew. I've known for 3 years. 3 years? He looked like she'd struck him. You knew for 3 years and you just stayed? Played along. I stayed because Eleanor's will specified that you had to remain married to a spouse of genuine charitable character for 5 years minimum. I qualified. I wanted to make sure Eleanor's wishes were honored. She pulled out her screen and showed him the relevant section of the will. But she also included a provision that if you divorced that spouse after 5 years but before 10, everything would transfer to her instead. Eleanor knew exactly what you'd do. She set a trap for your greed. David read the text, his enhanced eyes tracking rapidly back and forth, his premium neural processor probably running analysis algorithms to find some loophole or escape. There wasn't one. Eleanor had been thorough. Mother knew, he said slowly. She must have known. She read the will, she told me. His expression shifted from panic to fury. She lied to me. My own mother lied to keep me married just long enough to trigger the transfer. She thought she was gaming the system, but instead she walked me right into Eleanor's lesson about the true cost of greed. Maya finished. Your grandmother spent her whole life watching your family value money over character. So she designed a test. Marry someone authentic and stay married, value them genuinely, and you'd keep the inheritance. Or treat them as disposable, divorce them the moment it was convenient, and prove you'd learned nothing. She met his eyes steadily. You failed, David. I'll contest this. My lawyers will. Your lawyers will do nothing, because the will was upheld twice during probate and there's no legal mechanism to challenge a transfer that happened exactly as Eleanor specified. Maya's voice hardened. You filed for divorce this morning. The moment I acknowledged your petition, the inheritance transferred automatically. It's done. The settlement I offered, $200,000, you could have walked away with that and been fine. Why would you risk what? Telling the truth? Maya felt something like pity for him, this man who still didn't understand what he'd lost. David, you spent 5 years married to me and you never once saw me. You saw an obstacle. An inconvenience. Someone to endure until you could move on to your real life. Eleanor saw me. She saw someone who valued the same things she'd valued before wealth corrupted her family. She left me her fortune because she knew I'd use it the way she'd wanted to all along, to change lives instead of just accumulating more status. So what? David's voice rose. You're just going to take everything? The money, the properties, the foundations? Everything grandmother built? Yes, Maya said simply. And I'm going to use it all to build literacy centers and affordable housing and community programs. Everything Eleanor believed in. Everything your family forgot mattered. David stared at her, calculating. She could almost see his neural processor working through scenarios, weighing options. Chloe, he said finally. She's not going to want to marry me without the money. Her algorithms, then she wasn't the right person anyway, Maya said, feeling something almost like sympathy. David, I hope someday you figure out what actually has value. But I can't wait around to see if you do. I have a press conference at noon to announce the foundation's relaunch. You should go. A press conference? His panic reignited. You're going public with this? Eleanor's inheritance was always going to be public knowledge. I'm just controlling the narrative. Maya opened the conference room door. "Goodbye, David. I hope you find what you're looking for." "I truly do." She walked back to her students, leaving David standing in the conference room looking lost and small despite his genetic enhancements and premium augmentations. The children welcomed her back with eager faces, ready to hear more about Charlotte and Wilbur and the meaning of friendship. Maya read until lunchtime, her voice steady, her heart light, Eleanor's necklace warm against her skin. Through the center's front windows, she could see news vans beginning to arrive. Word had leaked, probably from the trust administrators, possibly from the Ashford family's lawyers, definitely spreading through social media feeds as people's neural implants picked up the scandal and shared it algorithmically. By noon, the modest learning center was surrounded by reporters, their camera drones hovering at legal distances, their premium neural implants recording every detail for feeds that would reach millions. Marcus arrived at 11:45, Sophie in tow because school had let out early and he refused to miss this moment. "Ready?" he asked Maya. She looked around the center, at the worn furniture and donated books, at the children eating free lunches, at the teachers who worked for modest salaries because they believed in the mission. This was real. This mattered. And now she had the resources to expand it 100-fold. "Ready," Maya confirmed. They walked outside together, Maya in her simple gray dress and Eleanor's necklace. Marcus in his off-the-rack suit, Sophie holding both their hands. The reporters surged forward, cameras tracking their every move, questions exploding from dozens of directions. Marcus led them to the microphone setup his paralegal had arranged. Maya stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of journalists, the curious neighbors, the parents of her students who'd come to see what the commotion was about. Somewhere in that crowd, she knew, David was watching. Probably Patricia and Cameron too, calculating damage control, preparing their own narratives. Maya didn't care about their narratives anymore. She had her own story to tell. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice amplified through speakers that carried across the street. "My name is Maya Chen. Until this morning, I was married to David Ashford. As of 9 a.m. today, I'm also the primary beneficiary of Eleanor Ashford's estate, inheriting $8 million and 40% of the Ashford family's real estate holdings." The reporters erupted with questions. Maya waited for silence, her calm authority eventually settling the crowd. Eleanor Ashford built her fortune from nothing. She understood what wealth could do, both its power to change lives and its danger of corrupting values. When she passed 2 years ago, she left a will designed to test whether her family had learned what truly mattered. Today, we learned the answer. Maya pulled out her screen and projected Eleanor's letter onto the display screen behind her, the one the old woman had left for exactly this moment. The one she'd written knowing her family would fail her test. Eleanor wrote, "Real wealth is measured in lives changed, not dollars accumulated." Maya's voice strengthened. "Today, I'm announcing the relaunch of the Eleanor Ashford Foundation for Children's Literacy. Every penny of the $8 million inheritance will endow this foundation. We'll build literacy centers in underserved communities across the state. We'll provide free books, tutoring, and educational support to children who need it most." She advanced to the next slide, architectural renderings of transformed buildings. The real estate holdings will be converted into affordable housing and community centers. Luxury developments will become homes for working families. Commercial properties will house libraries and youth programs. Eleanor's wealth will finally be used the way she'd intended, to build community instead of dynasty. The reporters were recording frantically, their neural implants probably overheating with the volume of data. This was the scandal of the decade, a wealthy family scheming exposed, their fortune transferred to the modest librarian they dismissed, justice served through an old woman's brilliant final act. "I know there will be questions about how this transfer occurred," Maya continued. "About the terms of Eleanor's will and why the inheritance went to me instead of her grandson. Those details will be made public through proper legal channels. What matters today is this: Eleanor Ashford believed in using wealth for good. She believed in valuing character over status. She believed in second chances and justice and the power of education to transform lives." Maya looked directly into the nearest camera, knowing David and Patricia and Cameron were watching. The Ashford family spent 5 years teaching me that success is measured in dollars and social status. Eleanor spent one afternoon teaching me that real success is measured in lives touched and communities strengthened. I'm grateful to finally have the resources to prove her right. She stepped back from the podium. Officially ending the statement, the reporters continued shouting questions. Marcus moved forward smoothly, his attorney voice cutting through the chaos. Ms. Chen will not be taking questions today. All inquiries should be directed to our office. Full financial disclosures and foundation plans will be released through proper channels. Thank you. They walked back into the learning center, leaving the press frenzy outside. Sophie immediately wrapped her arms around Maya's waist. That was so cool. You were like a superhero, Maya laughed, some of the tension finally releasing. Just a librarian who got very lucky. You weren't lucky, Marcus corrected quietly. You were exactly who Eleanor hoped you'd be. That's not luck. That's character. Through the windows, Maya could see the reporters dispersing, already uploading their stories, spreading the news across every social feed and influence network in the city. By tonight, everyone would know what happened. The Ashford family's carefully maintained image would be shattered. David's reputation would never recover from the revelation that he'd married for money and lost everything through greed. And Maya? Maya would go back to teaching reading, except now she'd have the resources to teach thousands instead of dozens. Her screen buzzed. A message from an unknown number. This isn't over. The Ashfords don't lose gracefully. Patricia. Trying one last time to intimidate her. Maya deleted the message without responding. Let Patricia threaten. Let the whole family rage. Eleanor's will was ironclad. The inheritance was transferred. The foundation was launching. The Ashfords had already lost. They just hadn't accepted it yet, but they would. Eventually, they'd have to face the truth, that the modest librarian they'd dismissed for 5 years had outplayed them completely, that their own greed had been their downfall, that Eleanor's final lesson had been delivered perfectly. Real wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts. It was measured in character. And by that metric, Maya Chen had always been richer than the entire Ashford family combined. She just finally had the resources to prove it.